Today, I am honored to welcome Sami Steigmann to the podcast, a Holocaust survivor whose story of resilience, survival, and hope is nothing short of extraordinary. Sami was born in 1939 in Czernowitz, then part of Romania, and today part of Ukraine. Sami was a child when he and his family were deported to the Mogilev-Podolsky labor camp in Transnistria, where they endured unimaginable conditions. Subjected to Nazi medical experiments and starvation, Sami's journey from the horrors of the Holocaust to rebuilding a life in Israel and the United States is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Now, as a dedicated educator, Sami has shared his story with over 250,000 people worldwide, urging us to never be bystanders in the face of injustice. I am blessed to have him here to share his and his family's experiences, offering a vital opportunity to learn about the realities of the Holocaust and the lessons it holds for us today. Sami, thank you for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jordan. I am very honored. It's very unusual that inviting me for a podcast. Okay, you invited me to be here in person from New York. And also I had and have the opportunity to meet your family and with your children. Boy, and your older daughter is a very affectionate, unbelievable, how friendly she is with a complete stranger.
She loved you immediately.
This is a tribute to you.
Thank
your
you.
Parenting.
As soon as you walked in the door, she was like, Sami. She was so excited to see you. So thank you for being here. This is, I do many podcasts, and it's not an exaggeration to say this is the one I'm most excited for that I've ever done. And I sincerely appreciate you being here. So I have many questions. I have many questions. But first, I just want to hear your story. So before we get into the questions from me and from people on Instagram, would you mind starting from the beginning and just telling us and share what you've lived through?
Absolutely. First of all, I'm very honored, to be with you and to address your audience. The Holocaust is, in my opinion, must be taught forever and ever. Because unless somebody can prove me wrong, the Holocaust is the best example what hate can do not only to a person, but to a group of people, a nation, and to the world. I will also address the idea, how did the Holocaust happen? Because I have found that many Jewish students, their families, went through the Holocaust, and they have no idea how the Holocaust started. It's a difficult subject, and for many people, they deny it because it's difficult to understand. How could an entire nation, the world, find it not only acceptable, but required to annihilate just one group of people, the Jews? Born on December 21, 1939, the war was already 3 months old. Obviously, I have no memory of that period of time. I have been, like you said, in a labor camp in the former Soviet Union. Today, it's in Ukraine. From 1941 to 1944. That area, Transnistria, was annexed on June 22nd, 1941, by the Romanians. What happened is the Germans broke their agreement with the former Soviet Union not to attack each other, Operation Barbarossa. Behind them were not fighting groups. They were groups that they had only one mission, to murder the Jews and the Russians. They were called Einsatzgruppen, and behind them were the Romanian troops. And they did not occupy. They actually annexed an area of the former Soviet Union called Transnistria. When the camp was liberated, it became again part of the former Soviet Union. My parents and I were deported when I was a year and a half. So for me, it's a blessing in disguise that I don't have memories of that period of time. So I do not have to relive those horror stories like the older generations every single day. On the other hand, until the Eichmann trial in 1961, and I will talk about it, the Holocaust survivors did not speak publicly, with very few exceptions. And the Holocaust survivors wanted the children to have a normal childhood. Only when I started to speak in 2008 did I realize that my childhood was not quote-unquote normal. Okay. I was born in an area, I was born with my mother in an area of the former Austro-Hungarian Empire. The emperor, Franz Joseph, was extremely benevolent to the Jewish people, so a lot of the people adapted the German culture, and therefore my first language was German. Okay, and surprisingly enough, I think about 3 years ago, for the first time, I realized that I have some of the German culture. I never thought of it. Okay. If you go to my apartment, I live in New York, and you look at the wall where I have, all the memorabilia with the Holocaust, certificates, everything. Everything has to be in perfect order. Even my drawers are in perfect order. The biggest problem, I'm extremely well organized. There is only one problem. I don't remember where I put things. So what happened is that particular area called Bukovina was part of Romania. And that's why we were deported by the Romanians and not by the Germans. Before I talk about myself, I would like to talk about my parents. Okay. I know very little, unfortunately, about my mother's side. My son has 3 Hebrew names. He does not know it because I went through a very bitter divorce. But his first name, Moshe, is after my mother's brother. Okay. But I know very little about her, so I can talk more about my father. My father was an orphan of both of his parents. My grandfather died before my father was born, unable to take care of 8 children, because in those days, with few exceptions, only the men provided for the family. My grandmother decided to take the 2 youngest children and commit suicide.
Oh my gosh.
A stranger saved the children, but my grandmother did commit suicide. So my father grew up in an orphanage in Vienna, Austria, and at age 13, he was let go. So he had to learn to take care of himself, and those experiences helped him during the war, helped him after the war when there was not enough food to feed the population, and he knew how to provide for the family. Every person that went through the Holocaust or any trauma, they react differently to it. My father was a wonderful friend, but you crossed him once, and I will tell you a story about it. He would not talk to you for the rest of his life.
Oh, no.
Okay, unforgiving. My mother, on the other hand, had fits of depression. So, obviously, I am a child of both parents. So, I took my confidence from my father, my sensitivity from my mother. One thing that is very unusual, when I lived in Israel, my mother did not speak Hebrew. When she passed away, most of the people were not Jews from Europe. Most of them were from Middle East. Okay, and I asked them, why? Okay, you could hardly speak to my mother. And they said her smile, the way she acted, it was not words, okay, had an impact on them.
That's
and made
beautiful.
them feel wonderful. So
they were
I
Jews
had the
from
same
like
sensitivity.
They were Jews from Yemen and Iraq and from
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Okay.
I think many people, especially nowadays, they get this false narrative that the only Jews in Israel are Jews who came from Eastern Europe, and they have no clue about the Farhud. They don't know about how many Jews from Yemen and Iraq and Afghanistan were forced to leave their homes and then come to Israel. So I wanted to ask if they were those Jews, so
Yes.
people could have a little bit more context.
Interestingly enough, the first Jews that came to Palestine and started Ben Gurion, with the state of Israel, were from Europe. That is correct. From all of the leaders of Israel that I really liked, and I was a great fan, there are only two of them that today I am still a great fan of them. And all the other ones, each one made a fatal mistake in what's happening today in Israel. The first one is Ben Gurion against his entire cabinet, which was opposed to him. He declared the state of Israel. The second one is Begin. There was a discrimination between the people from Middle East and from the people from Sfarad, Spain. So what he did, he brought those people to be on equal foot with the Europeans. Okay, and when people say that most of the Jews are white, it is incorrect, because right now the majority of them are not white. They are from Middle East, like you said, from Yemen, from Taiwan, from Yemen, Iraq, Iran, and they are the majority today, and they are not white. So it's a multi-generational, multicultural. It's probably the one that I would say, in my opinion, has brought in people from all over the world, and at the same time, we have free speech, free access to the government, to the culture, to the universities, okay, Christians, Arabs, anything that you can think of. So it's a wonderful country. Yes, we do have difficulties. Who doesn't? Okay, but you would be amazed what Israel did from a marsh. There was nothing there, and what they built.
Go back now to, you were talking about your father.
Yes.
And you are the product of your father's confidence and your mother's sensitivity. Keep going from there.
What happened is, since I was so young and I was in a labor camp, and if you ask any survivor, how come you're alive today? Okay, almost everybody will use only one word: luck. There is no rhyme, there is no reason why somebody lived, somebody died. I would say that people that believed in God, many of them survived. People that were agnostic, did not believe in anything because of the dire situations, a lot of them committed suicide. In my particular case, being so young, obviously I did not have the strength or the skill to do any work. So from the 6 million Jews, 1.5 million were children. So my luck was that I was never separated from my parents. I was subjected to medical experiments, and I will feel them for the rest of my life. You look at me, and you can see that I am a picture of perfect health. It's incorrect. I am in pain every single second of my life. I have suffered from head, and still do, neck, shoulders, and back. Today, because of my age, 85, I also have other issues, okay? Arthritis, my legs, difficulty walking on an incline, stairs, long distances. But I am determined. A lot of people call it stubborn. And I say, I don't believe in negativity. Okay? I take negative things and I turn them into something positive, and I will give you other examples. But I prefer determined. It's basically the same thing, but it is positive. Okay? I'll tell you one thing. I was in something called March of the Living. Poland, and our delegation from New York, New Jersey also went to Israel, the only one. And when I was in Israel, in Jerusalem, in Tzfat, in Tiberias, okay, steps, long steps. There was at the same time very, very hilly. And I had an ingrown toenail, extremely painful. And I tried to walk every single day 2 miles, but there at least 4 or 5 miles a day. And they offered me a wheelchair, and I said no. And number one, I wanted to challenge myself with the pain. I also have a very high pain tolerance. The other thing is, I wanted to teach the young people, okay, the difficulties that people had to go through to survive. You cannot explain it in words. There are not enough words, to really describe the pain. By seeing me struggling, determined to make it, okay, I believe that they got a glimpse of what people had to go through. So for me, it was also a lesson for the young people to teach them.
Sami, you were talking about the medical experiments that were done on you as a child. Can you either talk about the ones that were done on you, or why the Nazis were doing medical experiments in general on children?
Well, that did not start with the Holocaust.
Okay.
That started with Operation T4 in Austria in 1938, when the Germans felt that the medically and physically ill people are a financial burden, okay, to the state. And in Austria, okay, that was the Operation T4, where they did medical experiments and also at the same time primitively gassed them. Now, the interesting part of it is that most of the experiments were pseudo-scientific, which means so-called scientific, but had no real medical reason. To give an example of a pseudo-medical experiment is they used to, without anesthesia, inject a dye in your eye to try to change it from brown to blue. Okay. However, I do know of one particular experiment that, in my opinion, was done for a good reason, but in humane ways. What happened is Europe collapsed in 2 weeks. It was called Blitzkrieg. When they attacked former Soviet Union, they were convinced that the Russians will surrender. They did not. And they got caught in the bitter cold of the Russian winter. And they did not have the proper clothing. So one of the experiments, and it was not done only with Jews, also with Russians, with the inmates, what they did is they took the people and put them in freezing water and timed it, how long it will take until they freeze to death, literally. That experiment was done to understand how long the German military can fight under those conditions until the proper clothing will come. So it was done in inhumane ways, but from my perspective, the only one that I can think of that was done for good reasons.
Okay. So they they did it for their own benefit, even though you can understand the logic of why they did it, but it was
Correct.
absolutely
Correct.
it wasn't justifiable in any way, shape, or form.
Correct. Not the way they did it. At the same time, I have been asked by many people, okay, what they have learned from those experiments, because they learned a lot of things. Okay, if we should use them. And I said it was done. Nothing you can do about it. And if it helps today, okay, to benefit people, I say yes. Okay. Although it was done in inhumane ways.
Are there any other experiments that were either done on you or other experiments that the Nazis did that come to mind that you want to share with people who might not understand what the Nazis were doing?
To the best of my knowledge, that was the only one. The reason they could not find a cure in my particular case is I do not know where it starts. I don't know how long it will be there, where it will go, the intensity of the pain. Okay, so because it's not localized, they could not find a cure. I used extremely addictive, very powerful opioids. Because I used it for pain and not for recreation, I was able, I would say 50 plus years, to learn to live with the pain, okay, without using drugs. As a matter of fact, about 9 months ago, I had an episode that I could hardly put my foot down on the floor. I went to the doctor. He gave me 20 opioids. I used 7. Miraculously, the pain became manageable. Guess what? I still have 13.
So, Sami, can you continue going back to your story and your family's story? Maybe starting with deportation, going into the labor camp. Can you talk about what life was like in the labor camp, whether it was for you, for your family?
Not from a personal experience.
Okay.
However, I heard people talking about it, and there is one particular story that stays with me forever. One particular survivor said that for breakfast, they gave you a slice of bread and you had to work half a day. For lunch, another slice of bread, and you had to work for the rest of the day. In the evening, they gave you soup, but not the soup that we are familiar with, nutritious. It was mostly water and salt makes you thirsty. To understand the difficult conditions that people had to go through, let's take, for an example, a man or a young person weighing 180 pounds. If that person was lucky to survive, at the end of the war, he weighed 60, 65 pounds. Okay, the bones were out. Walking skeletons. Can you imagine the difficulty that they had to go through? There is another thing. A lot of people, when they think about resistance, they think only of military resistance, what happened in Warsaw. That from April 19 to May 16, with very few guns, with very few ammunitions, grenades, cocktail Molotovs, they were able to resist the mighty German military. It's also called, not only in Hebrew, is the Jewish commemoration of the Holocaust called Yom HaShoah, and heroism. Okay. Finally, the Germans got sick and tired, and they decided to liquidate the Warsaw Ghetto. But there were other types of resistance. There was the cultural resistance. In the concentration camps, they taught the children, okay, how to read, the alphabet, sing, theater, music, clandestine, but they did it. So this was the cultural resistance. There was, for instance, the humanitarian resistance. If somebody had the crumb of bread and saw somebody in worse shape that he was or she was, would give up that crumb of bread to the other person. They also kept the religion. They were praying. As a matter of fact, on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Jewish life, you have to fast. People were dying of starvation. And in Yom Kippur, they were fasting. So the other thing was a lot of the people did not have a chance to talk or to sing. And singing is very important to a person, or to listen to the music. And they did not have the option because they were hidden by strangers. They were in the forest, in the sewers. So interestingly enough, that was a different form of resistance. So we cannot think of resistance just as the military one. My father, for instance, like many other survivors, lived his life with a guilt feeling. From 42 people, only 2 survived. My uncle, and my father. My uncle was not a survivor, and I will explain what a survivor is. My uncle was a refugee, in Shanghai. One of the things, when I will explain how the Holocaust happened, is to understand that today, not to make comparisons with the past, because today there are many countries that are accepting refugees. However, during those days, during the Nazi regime, there were only 3 countries that officially accepted Jewish refugees: Dominican Republic, China, and Philippines. So that's why this is one example why we should not make comparisons to the past. We have to learn from the past, especially the young people, because all the changes in the world have been accomplished by the young people. They have to see the signs of today in learning from the past to learn how to stand up to what's happening today and to prevent future tragedies.
Sami, I've heard you speak about how there was a woman, a German woman, who risked her life to make sure you were fed. Can you talk about that?
Sure. What happened, I told you about the first one that was not separated from my parents, and I was subjected to medical experiments. The third one is, like you mentioned, a German woman saved my life. And not far away from the camp, there was a farm owned by Germans. And she brought food to the guards in the SS, so obviously she had access, to go wherever she wanted in the camp. After they finished with the medical experiments, came a stage that I was dying of starvation. There are physical signs: big head, swollen stomach, swollen feet. At the risk of her entire family, not just her own, she decided to give me milk. Possibly more, but since I did not ask my father, and I don't know, I don't want to embellish it. As a matter of fact, when I started to get some colors on my cheek, my father said that she used to pinch me, and she used to say, "Those are my rosy cheeks." I do not know the name of the person that saved me. I was not able to honor her in person or posthumously. So in 2014, I was in Jerusalem, in Israel, and giving testimony at the Holocaust Museum called Yad Vashem. Next to the museum, there is a garden honoring 27,000 people that saved Jews. And I saw a marker honoring the unknown righteous among the nations. And that made me feel extremely good, because indirectly, the woman that saved my life has been honored.
I love that. I think it's normal for humans now to wonder what they would have been like if they had lived in Nazi Germany. I don't think many people realize the bravery that it would take for this woman to risk her life and her family's life to make sure that you got milk. And maybe this is the pessimist in me. I don't think most people would be willing to risk their lives and their family's lives to make sure that you got the milk that she gave you.
I've been asked that question, what would I do? And my answer is, I would like to believe that I would do it. But I really don't know. I would have to be in that particular situation. And the interesting part is that the crimes were done by educated people. The engineers built the death camps. Doctors did the medical experiments. Okay, nurses killed babies and everything else. So these were intellectual people. The people that saved Jews were regular peoples that did the right thing for the right reason. Simple people. A lot of the Holocaust survivors say, well, they did it because they got money, they wanted the house or whatever it is. And I said, be grateful. What's the difference why they did it? They risked their lives to save you.
Yeah.
Okay? So I understand their anger, whatever it is. They lost everything. But at the same time, the people that saved Jews did it for the right reason. Okay? And just for the right thing. Did the right thing.
Can you talk about, because this brings up a very interesting question around how could the Holocaust have happened? Okay. How is this possible? We have very educated people committing the worst crimes humanity has ever seen, and we have regular everyday people risking their lives and their families' lives to save these people. How do you get to a point in which the Holocaust happened?
Now, you know that a Jew answers a question with a question. So I'm going to ask you, when do you think, the Holocaust happened? When did it start?
Oh, this is almost a philosophical question, based on, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to walk you through my thoughts as I'm having them. I'm going to speak them out loud. So I know Jews greatly participated in World War I on Germany's side, and they helped Germany. And obviously Germany didn't have a good outcome after World War I, especially not only with the loss, but with the Treaty of Versailles. And I know Hitler and many of the people who shared his beliefs were able to blame Jews for the horrible inflation, for their standing on the world stage as a loser and the one who started and lost the war. And I believe that much of the hatred that began towards Jews that ultimately led to the Holocaust in Germany started immediately post World War I. I don't know if you think I'm correct or not. What do you think?
Now, you are the first one that gave me the right answer.
That makes me incredibly happy.
Most of the people say in the 20s, in the 30s, but it started with the end of World War I. When Germany lost the war, in the Treaty of Versailles, there were 3 punishments that were so severe against Germany that they lost their national pride. Number 1, they had to return all the occupied land. Number 2, they could not have an army. I have seen pictures that in a military parade, instead of guns, they had shovels. Number 3, they had to pay reparations to all the countries they fought against. That caused inflation. Most people know about inflation from a personal perspective, but they don't understand national inflation. This particular country, United States, is in debt of $37.5 trillion. Nobody knows what a trillion is. And the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren will have to pay the debt. In Germany, to understand what happened when they had to pay reparations to all the countries they fought against, in 1917, $1 was worth 4 German marks. At the height of the inflation, 1923, $1 was worth 1 trillion.
Oh my gosh.
You could have a wheelbarrow full of paper money, and you could not buy a newspaper. Nobody wanted it. They used it to warm themselves up in the winter. So you can imagine, okay, when people try to make comparisons to the past, please don't. Okay. So when people go through a trauma, individually or nationally, there is a tendency to blame other people or circumstances. And Hitler, okay, when he started his Nazi party, by the way, we have a tendency that when small hate groups come to existence, we dismiss them. To understand, Hitler, when he started the Nazi party, had only 6 people, 6 members. Through propaganda, and they were geniuses on that. In 1932, during the elections, 30% of the Germans voted for him. So Hitler and his minister of propaganda said one thing: a lie or misrepresentation, if it's said often enough, I'm just paraphrasing, okay, will become the truth. And that's what's happening today. And people have a tendency not to react in time and appropriately. And because they didn't react in time and appropriately, things kept escalating to a point of no return. At the same time, I'm going to ask you a question. What was Hitler's initial goal regarding the Jews in Germany?
Please correct me if I'm wrong. I thought his initial goal, publicly stated, was to relocate them. For some reason, somewhere in Africa is coming to mind, but it might be incorrect. I believe it was initially to relocate them and get them out of Germany.
Okay. Very good. I'm very proud of you. Interestingly enough, his initial goal was a Germany free of Jewish people. Okay, Juden frei. But why would the Jews want to leave? They were assimilated. They considered themselves Germans. They proudly fought for Germany in World War I. They lived there for centuries. So to make them leave voluntarily, they came with the Nuremberg laws. By the way, I have to go back. When I told you about the inflation, I was in Germany 3 times. Here in the United States, even adults do not know how much a dollar was worth in 1923. In Germany, 7th graders knew the answer. Okay. Going back now. Okay, so they came out in 1935 with the Nuremberg laws. And they made life for the Jews extremely difficult. Okay, and the Germans, even today, are law-abiding citizens. To understand what I mean by that is in United States, 65 miles an hour is the benchmark. In Germany, it is the speed limit. So in the Nuremberg laws, it was said that German people do not associate yourselves with your Jewish neighbors, with your Jewish friends. And because it was the law, they complied and they felt patriotic to do so. But they were not violent. Did people know what's happening? Yes. Were there pockets of resistance? Yes. But not enough, to make a huge difference. Their coup d'etat regarding the PR was the Olympics in 1936. Came 1938. In 1938, they annexed Austria, became part of the Greater Germany. And like I told you, in Austria, what they did is the T4, medical and experiments and gas them, mentally and physically ill people. I also, when I go to schools and I start with fourth graders, one of the greatest experiences that I had was speaking to second graders, and if I have time, I'll tell you about it. But interestingly enough, when I'm talking about the medical experiments, what's very important to understand is that each person, regardless how young they are, can make a difference in this world. One person at a time. In Germany, a priest found out about those experiments in the murders, made it public. There was a big outcry in Germany, and the killings stopped. But not before they murdered over 200,000 mentally and physically ill Germans. Guess what happened to the priest? Absolutely nothing.
Really?
And that's why I'm trying to teach the young generation. You have a voice. Use it. Do not be afraid. Are there consequences? Of course there are. But don't be afraid. And speak up. So what happened in 1938 when they annexed Austria, in November 9, November 10, there were 2 riots sponsored by the state. 2 days. They are known as Kristallnacht. In Kristallnacht, they murdered over 100 Jews. They destroyed over 7,500 stores and synagogues and put in prison over 30,000 people. This was the first time that the Germans became violent against the Jews. To add insult to injury, the Jews had to pay for the cleanup. Again, I'm not going to repeat, and I'm not going to say it again. They did not react in time appropriately, and it kept escalating. And came 1939, September 1st. Germany attacked Poland. World War II started. Unlike Europe, which was occupied, Poland was annexed and became part of the Greater Germany. And all of a sudden, they found themselves with a problem. They did not want any Jews in Germany. And in Poland, they found 3.3 million Jews. What the hell do you do with them? And that came the idea of exterminating them. And they also convinced the world to participate in the annihilation of the Jews. The difference between genocide and Holocaust, they started the same way. They started with words and bullying. However, genocide is the murder of a group of people. The word "side" is used in the English language in 18 different ways. One of them is infanticide, genocide, suicide. The word "side" is murder. And "geno" means group. So that is the murder of a group of people. And the people lump them together. Holocaust is unique in its moment. It is the most recorded crime in human history. And it is also was run like a factory. Please don't compare the two of them, lump them together. There's difference, but like I said before, they start the same way. And it's very important to understand that they convinced the world to participate in it because they portrayed the Jews as an animal. When you portray a person or a group of people as an animal, you dehumanize him, her, or the group. And that is a license to hurt them. Do you know how they portrayed the Jews? With what animal?
A rat. A rat.
Rats, correct. And why rats? Because rats, like the Jews, are very small in number. They live all over the world, but they, spread disease. By portraying the Jews as rats, they convince the world that the Jews are not a danger only to Germany, but also to the world. And that's why other countries participate in the annihilation of the Jewish people. Let's go further. I told you about June 22nd, 1941. And now comes January 20, 1942. 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals got together in a city which today is part of Berlin, Wannsee. And they came out with the final solution to the Jewish question. That is the official date of the Holocaust. And they started with Europe. They made a list of all of the European countries, depending of the source. So they came out with a list of 9.5 to 11 million Jews. Once they were going to accomplish their goal, they were going to open up a museum in Prague, and they were going to call it the Museum of the Extinct Jewish Race. Now, a lot of celebrities, people in power, use the wrong words. I do not attack people, but boy do I attack what they say. In one celebrity, and if you want, you can use the person's name, said that the Holocaust is not about race. And I just told you that the Nazis called the Jews a race. Her apology was even worse than the initial comment. The damage that she or leaders, by using the wrong words, are causing is because young people will not do the research. And they will accept what she or the leaders are saying as fact. And by repeating, especially now with the social media, TikTok and everything else, Instagram, that becomes the new truth. And that's why we have to change the false narratives to a positive narratives. And that is my goal. My mission in life is an acronym of a Hebrew word, emet, truth, to educate the next generation, to motivate them by using my personal examples as to be the best that they can be, to empower them to become upstanders. And knowledge without action is totally meaningless, in my opinion. And they have to bring the media with them. Without the media, very little can be accomplished. I'll give you a very specific example why I mean the media is very important. I was invited to speak on behalf of the Uyghur people. I had no idea who they were, never heard of them. By doing the research, I found out that the Jews in the former Soviet Union, when they wanted to escape the dire consequences, they went to the south, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. In Uzbekistan live Muslims. Their language is close to the Turkish one, and they are called Uyghur. and they received the Jews with open arms. And I was invited to speak on their behalf because in China about 3 years ago, they started deporting, the Uyghur people. And I spoke twice in front of the UN, once at their national rally in D.C., and I told them, you will not accomplish anything unless you can convince the United States as the leader of the world that what's happening in China is genocide. I don't know how they did it. They listened to me. United States recognized what's happening in China as genocide, and guess what? Right now it's known worldwide. The media calls it genocide. That's why it's very important to bring the media in it. One of the most person that I really admire is Martin Luther King Jr. He brought other groups of people with him, marched nationwide, brought the media, and because of him, many groundbreaking legislations have been approved. But he did it in one way, without violence. Now, there is another thing that I want to say, and we have to make a difference, People like to lump things together. How shall I say, I like what the Black Lives Matter, BLM, accomplished. And I agree with them. However, what I don't like is that they used violence to do that. But because the way they did it, as one group of people, they have been able to make the world aware of their movements. So although I identify with the BLM movement, I do not identify with the BLM organization, which is anti-Israel and it's anti-Jew. By the way, words are extremely important. For instance, I do not like the word anti-Semite. You may be surprised. What's happening, anti-Semite, although it's against the Jews, everybody knows it, can be identified as another form of hate. But I can hate somebody because the way they are dressed, the way they look, their language, the color of their eyes, their hairstyle, many, many ways. When we talk about Jews, we have to use Jew hatred. It's 4,000 years old. It's not a different type of hate. It's an unusual hate, geared specifically to one group of people. So that's what I try to teach the young people, to use the word Jew hater, not anti-Semitism. That has been done for years, for centuries, so it will be a long time before everybody will use the word to change the saying, but it will take, everybody will have to start using the word Jew hater. Jew hater.
I want to go back now to leading up to the Holocaust, how Hitler and Goebbels, his propaganda minister, and the Nazis were able to convince a nation and convince the world to allow this to happen. One of the things that really sticks out to me that you talk about a lot is the importance of educating the youth. And Hitler knew that. And he used the Hitler Youth movement.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Can you talk about how he was able to propagandize the youth and how maybe that we're seeing that today?
Well, this is what's happening today. The media is complicit in what happened in those days, what's happening today. So I gave you an example with that particular person that said the Holocaust
She was on The View, correct?
Pardon me?
The TV show The View?
Correct.
Yes.
And
Okay.
I was on TV
Yes.
because it was suggested for me to be part of it and to give my answers
On that show?
on that show.
And you declined?
I did not decline. They did not invite me.
Yeah.
But I did answer on TV.
Oh, did you?
Yes. It's on YouTube. And interesting enough, I said she should have not been punished. I don't believe in that.
Okay.
But the damage that she did is so great because she has millions of followers. And especially the young people will not do the research. And they will accept it as a fact. As a matter of fact, talking about it, there is something else that I want to talk. A former prime minister of Israel. Again, I'm not going to use his name. He used the word West Bank. Why would the Jewish leader use the words of our enemies? And from my personal perspective, a West Bank is a geographical description of an area west of the Jordan River, described by Jordan. My personal opinion, it should be called Judea and Samaria. Greeks are coming from Greece. Italians are coming from Italy. French are coming from France. Jews are coming from Judea. So it should be called Judea in Samaria. But for political reasons, if you do not want to use Judea and Samaria, use the word disputed territories. And take a look at the difference, the words, the difference, what a word means. When you use the word, West Bank, the first thing that comes to mind is occupation, confrontation. Nothing can be resolved. However, when you use Judea and Samaria, that means that we are indigenous to the land. The word occupation does not apply. Like Iranians cannot occupy Iran. Iraqis cannot occupy Iraq. Jews cannot occupy, Judea and Samaria. So when you use the word, disputed territories, that gives the impression that if both sides are willing to talk, we can come to some kind of a resolution. But obviously, both sides have to be willing to talk and do that, which so far it's not happening. But the words are, a word is extremely important. You have to be very careful how we use what kind of words. And the media, they make their livelihood, by having confrontation instead showing the good part. And by using the wrong words, the media will amplify it, and it will become the new truth. And that's why we have to, use the proper words and to change the narrative from a negative one to a positive one.
You said something very interesting that I want further insight on. You said the woman on The View who said that the Holocaust had nothing to do with race, and then she came out and she apologized for it, which the apology was...
She said it's between two white people.
Yeah, which is...
It was
the
worse
whole
than
thing was a
first one.
mess.
Right.
You said you didn't think she should be punished.
Right.
Now, I'm not a fan, excuse me, I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I'm not a fan of dismantling someone for something like that. My assumption is that she was forced to give that apology the following day, if you could call it that. What do you think? Do you think that there should be no repercussion whatsoever? Because there's one thing for free speech, and she has the free speech, but if she's working for a company and she wants to continue working for that company, the company has its own standards, right? Do you think that the company should have the ability to, or the justification to punish someone for saying that? Or what are your thoughts on that as a whole?
Well, personally, what I think, she should not have been punished because it's not going to change what she said and what the kids, okay, have learned and agreed with. And it became part of the new falsehood. What I am saying is people like her, people like the Israeli leader that use the wrong words, they should be educated and use the proper words. The punishment didn't do anything.
Correct,
She's back on the View, okay, and did not accomplish anything, in my opinion.
Agreed.
But if the media would have come, the whole media would say this is inappropriate, okay, that would have changed. That's what they have to do. The media, we have to bring the media with us. I'm going to tell something else, something totally new that I have never said it before, okay? I am part of a new movement on the World Jewish Congress. No, the World Zionist Congress. Okay, I'm sorry. It's based on a book by David Friedman, the former ambassador to Israel. And his idea is that Judea and Samaria should be part of Israel. However, there are a lot of people that feel that because numerically they overpower us, they have many children, that is not a good idea. But David Friedman's idea is to have it like Puerto Rico, which is part of the United States, but they cannot vote in the general elections. So they will, the same thing in Judea and Samaria, they will administer themselves, but will not be able to vote in the general elections. And I have another idea that I want to bring up. They may not agree with this. Our enemies have a lot of money because what all the demonstrations takes a lot of money. We have many organizations that fight the same thing, Jew hatred, anti-Semitism, whatever you want to call it. But they don't speak with one voice. And I say, each one has a lot of money. Why don't you take 75% of that money and put it in a pot? That will create a lot of money to help. Use the other 20-25% to accomplish whatever goal you want to accomplish. I don't know if they will agree, but it's planting a seed. And like even with Herzl, took a long time. Okay, it finally came to reality. Maybe this eventually will come to a reality. And we have to use a very short slogan. And everybody should use it. Do you remember, okay, economically, somebody came out with KISS, keep it simple, stupid? That's exactly, by speaking with one voice, eventually the media will pick it up. Everybody will pick it up. Right now, we are talking in different languages. Everybody has a very good point, but nobody remembers. We are not united.
Sami, I want to go to one of the most common questions that I get from people who follow me, usually from non-Jews. And they don't understand why people hate Jews all throughout history. And I was wondering if I could get your opinion on not just necessarily even the Holocaust, although obviously including it. Where do you think this Jew hatred stems from?
Well, it's 4,000 years old. Throughout generations, it changed. Why? So initially, Christianity was created. By who? By Jews. How do you differentiate yourself from the place that you came from? You have to demonize it. So initially it started in the religious. Later it came economically. What people don't believe today, that a lot of the Jews are very rich, good businessmen and everything else. Why did the Jews become businessmen? Because they were not allowed to go to university. They could not have a profession. And I don't know if you remember, even when I came to Israel, you had people that were walking on the street and asking for old things, people that they were going to throw away. They picked them up, became industrialized, became very creative, and made something to be able to sell and, to make a living. So that's how they became businessmen, business people and everything else. And Jews are very creative. One of the things is that we are not united, but we are very creative. So later on it became, especially right now, it's Israel, Zionism. People do not understand what Zionism is. Zionism, for me, is that the Jews have a right to have their own country and determine their own future. Good, bad, or indifferent. So it will always be there. We all went through the COVID. However, there is another virus that can never be eradicated. And that is bullying, bigotry, Jew hatred, hate, racism, and ideology. The only way that we can combat it is only through education. I spoke, at the campus in New Jersey. And there was a Palestinian that asked me a question which had no context, and there was no good answer to it. So I tried to bring it in different directions. I looked at him. I talked to him. But I knew that he will not change his mind, because no matter which direction I went, he always came back to the same question. So I knew that I cannot do it. But by talking to him, I addressed the audience. And at the end of my presentation, one student came to me and she said, "I did not know that." And I said, "Yes, I succeeded. I know I will not convince the whole audience, but by convincing one particular person, I have succeeded, one person at a time." And here I'll give you two examples what one person can do. A 17-year-old high school student found out that I was never in northern Kentucky. And he wanted me to arrange to bring me, to speak to his school. A 17-year-old arranged for me to be in 8 different cities on his own. 17 presentations, and arranged for me to bring me financially to Kentucky. Unbelievable. And I also spoke to a museum. He took me to the Holocaust Museum in Cincinnati, showed me around a little bit of Cincinnati. There is also the underground, with the slaves. In Cincinnati, he took me there. I spoke there. So a 17-year-old did it. Unreal. A German student, also 17-year-old, wanted, because of the rise of Jew hatred in Germany, she wanted to talk to a Holocaust survivor. And it so happened that I was recommended. And she wanted to bring me to Germany. And I said, well, I live under the poverty line, so somebody will have to pay for it. Well, she said, why don't you go to GoFundMe? And I said, I will never do that, to ask for money to go on a trip to Germany. A 17-year-old did something similar what the other 17-year-old did in northern Kentucky. She raised the money, 963 euros, to bring me to Germany, arranged for me to a place to stay. He also was there for a week. And one of the things that I do like to do, which I'm different from the other survivors, is I have always somebody moderate. A student, or if I'm speaking to an organization, the person that invited me. And in one of the cities, it was in northern Germany, in one of the cities, the mayor wanted to moderate. I try to elevate young people to become leaders. When I was in Illinois, I spoke to 1,200 students, middle school and high school, and 11th grader moderated. In front of 400 students, a 7th grader. I even had a 5th grader moderate. They cannot make a mistake. I know where I want to go. I know what I want to say. But for them to feel comfortable, okay, and be proud of themselves in front of the live audience,
That's beautiful.
that's promoting leaders. And I'm also the only one that talks about how did the Holocaust, okay, happen until it came to the point of no return. And I'm going to repeat it, but knowledge without action means nothing. And the media has to be brought in.
Is there anything else in regard to, before we move on to other questions, in regard to how the Holocaust happened, in regard to your family's story, your story? Is there anything else that you would like listeners to know?
Well, in my story, I would like to talk about how life was after the war. When the camp was liberated, I was only about 3.5 years old. I was not even 4 years old. And because we were deported by the Romanians in 1946, they allowed a small group of Jews from the former Soviet Union to repatriate. My father, being born in Romania proper, he decided to choose the lesser of two evils and decided to go back to Romania and settled in a very, very small town in Transylvania. By the way, are you afraid of me?
Am I afraid of you?
Yeah,
Of course not.
you should be. I grew up in Transylvania. I'm the Jewish Dracula. So anyway, that's where I grew up, went to school. And after 12 years, in 1961, we finally got the visa to go to Israel after Romania was bribed. Okay? And in 1968, I came to the United States by myself, without money, without the language. So I know what I had to be an immigrant twice, okay, and actually 3 times. So I know something about immigration and everything else. What happened is a lot of people do not know how difficult life was after the war. And I did not feel different, discriminated, because everybody went through. But imagine yourself, you live in a house, there is no sink. Okay? We had to go to the well, quite long distances. Imagine yourself how many times you had to go, 2 pails of water, to take a bath, what do you call it, to cook, brush your teeth, whatever you had to do. But everybody had to do that. There was no toilet. There were only outhouses. The outhouses, many of them were open. Okay? In school, we did not have a soccer ball enough for all the kids. So we used to play soccer ball with balls made out of rags. When my uncle, that was a refugee in Shanghai, when the communists came to power, he came to the United States and settled in Santa Barbara and sent us a package. In the package, there was a real soccer ball. A simple item made me the most popular kid in school. So things were totally different, but everybody had to go through it, so we did not feel separate. Did I know discrimination? Yes. Because I grew up the Orthodox way. In my days, there was nothing in between. Either you were religious, modern, I'm talking modern religious, not the ultra-Orthodox, but at the same time, or you were agnostic. And being religious, I did not do the homework or what I was supposed to do to write on Saturday. Other kids did. And I had a teacher that did not like me and Jews in general. Maybe she was a Jew hater, maybe not, I don't know. She definitely wanted me to write. In those days, there was no social promotion. If you failed one course, whether it's sports, anything, something simple, but if you failed one course, you would have to redo that grade. And she threatened me that she will not promote me. But I was steadfast in my beliefs, did not give in, and in the last minute, she gave me a passing grade. Maybe under pressure, but she gave me a passing grade, and I was able to move on. So one of the things that I don't like is parents let kids do what they want. And they have to raise them. And they have to teach them to become independent. But they have to be grounded. So I don't care, like for instance in mixed marriages, I don't care if you raise the child Jewish or Christian. But don't mix both of them. Have the kid have one very strong ground, okay? Because otherwise they will look for something to belong to. Because they don't belong to the Jews, they don't belong to the Christians. It's mixed, okay? But I was very well grounded, Jewish culture, the Torah and everything else. They teach you how to live a good life. And they encompasses every aspect of life and everything else. So being very religious, that prevented me from straying into the wrong place.
Once your camp was liberated and you were, quote unquote, free to go, I'm assuming your parents didn't have any money. I'm assuming that how do they choose where to go? How do they get a home? What happens after being in this labor camp for years, essentially starving and dealing with I'm assuming they saw horrific things, people starving to death, dying from disease, people being killed. What do you do? What did your parents do?
Well, people were very creative. They did whatever they could to survive, whatever was available.
Do you know how your parents decided?
My father, okay, vaguely I remember that he was in the Romanian cavalry. Both of my parents were born in 1908. And most of the people were analphabetic. So he was not what I call foot soldier. He was in the administrative function. But there were no problems. Okay. He knew because of his experience that he had to fend for himself. So he knew who he can trust, who he cannot trust. After the war, there was not enough food to feed the population. So people had to be very creative. Like either items were not available or too expensive. My father was a bookkeeper. And in Romania, you did not have individual farmers. You had collectives. So my father was being literate. Okay, his job was a bookkeeper. He was to take money and go to different farms. He used to take me and to go to different farms and distribute the money to the farmers. They had to rely on their wits. So, for instance, my mother, many times she could not buy sour cream, cream cheese, at the same time butter. So he used to bring about 12 bottles of milk, let them ferment, and that eventually, through the process, became butter, cheese, whatever it is. We had a forest where we lived. We used to go and collect strawberries, raspberries, gooseberries, mushrooms. My mother used to make a wonderful mushroom soup. And at the same time, what I liked is we also had, for instance, the mushrooms are the poisonous ones and the good ones live together. My mother knew the difference, otherwise I would not be here. As a matter of fact, the Nazis portrayed the Jews as a poisoned mushroom. Okay. Uh, so it was very, very interesting how we had to survive in Romania. But it was something that everybody had to go through. And I personally felt the discrimination because of the other kids. But people used to come to me, even friends, and apparently I don't have what people imagine what a Jew is supposed to look like. Apparently I don't look that. I don't know what a Jew is supposed to look like, but go ahead. So anyway, my name is spelled with 2 M's. It's the German spelling. So people thought that I'm German. So I used to make stupid comments and jokes about Jews. And being very proud, I said, you know who you're looking to. You know who you're talking to. I'm a Jew. And they said, oh, we did not mean you. We mean them. Why not me? Because they knew me. And I teach the young people, we hate people because we don't know them.
Yes.
We don't know them because we hate them. So when you talk to a person, a different ethnic group, treat them as a person, not as a group. Okay? I don't represent my parents. I don't represent the Jewish people. I represent Sami Steigmann. If you like me, does not mean, and if you think I'm a good person, not every Jew, okay, should be liked or is a good person. If you hate me, not every Jew is a bad person. Treat me as an individual. People have a tendency to generalize. And I say, be very specific.
I have 2 things I want to say about that. The first is on the topic of what a Jew looks like. I lived in Israel for a year after high school. And after high school, I lived in Israel, and then I went to university here in the United States. And
Which university?
I went to University of Delaware.
Delaware. Never been there.
And one of the first people I met, another student, we were in a group, and I told them I was just living in Israel, and they were like, what were you doing in Israel? And I was like, well, I'm Jewish, and I went there for a year. And they looked at me, and they're like, you're Jewish? And I was like, yeah, I'm Jewish. And they start looking at my head, and I didn't know what was going on, and they kept looking at my head, and they said, where are your horns? And they were serious. They were 100% serious. They're like, where are your horns? I was like, what are you talking about? They were told that Jews had horns, and they couldn't believe I didn't have horns.
That's what the picture propaganda does to you. Sometimes a simple thing makes a difference in your life.
Yeah.
And so you bring something else that I wanted to talk, and then I will also talk, about 2 challenges, because I'm not only a Holocaust survivor, I'm also a survivor of life challenges. But interestingly enough, I used to volunteer for many years with Make-A-Wish Foundation. And for 63 years, I felt I don't belong to either one, and I told you why. Okay. And my mother was always surprised. She says, where did you take that optimism from? And I said, that's me. I couldn't put it in words. And a young person from Colorado, he had leukemia, 7 years old. And after 9/11, he wanted to meet his heroes, the firefighters. Volunteering for other organizations, I took him and showed him around the city. 2 years later, he came back, wanted to see me, and got me a button. In the middle, his pictures. In the bottom, November 20, 2004, the date that he was completely cured. In the top, survivor. For the first time at age 64, I realized why I'm always an optimist. Never, ever have I felt like a victim. I was always a survivor. And I teach the young people as a survivor, you will achieve anything you want in life. As
That's beautiful.
victimhood is optional. Nobody can make you a victim. You are the only one that can make you become a victim.
That is one of the greatest things I've ever heard in my life.
I'm also a motivational speaker because, unlike the professional ones that speak from the academic viewpoint, when I use a cliche, I will always use a personal example or what it means to me. Coming to this on, let me ask you a question. How would you describe the difference between a positive person and a negative person, or optimist and pessimist? Glass half?
Glass half full. Glass half full or glass half empty.
Exactly. I have a different one.
Okay.
A pessimist sees in every opportunity a problem. An optimist sees in every problem an opportunity. And I became homeless, and I'll tell you more about it. And I was in a shelter. I did not want to live. I even tried to commit suicide. Thankfully, I'm very good with ideas, but not good in implementing them. So interestingly enough, okay, I told to myself, I was in a situation that I did not want to live. And I told to myself, when I will quit smoking cold turkey. I did not say when I will try. That's not the commitment. When I will. I said it will be the beginning of my road to recovery. December 13th. If you're superstitious, Friday the 13th of 1996, I had my last cigarette.
That's amazing.
And this is an example, okay, of taking something, okay, as an optimist, seeing in every problem an opportunity. And that's what I teach the young people, to turn again, okay, negative to something positive.
Do you feel, I don't know how much you're on social media or in terms of your consuming other content, do you feel like being a victim is becoming more and more common, or people are falling for that trap of victimhood more and more recently, or is this just a forever thing that humans are often subject to?
From my personal experience, my personal idea is today the parents are giving everything to their children on a silver platter. So when they face some difficulties, they don't know how to talk about it, how to react about it. Right now, people don't talk. It's mostly everything texting, social media, and everything else. I call myself MD. You know what my specialty is?
You are media deficient.
Media deficient, exactly. Okay, so I'm not very good at it, so I cannot reach a lot of the people. I primarily use Facebook, but young people get away from it.
But today I'm going to teach you how to use Instagram once we're done with this.
Thank you. But this is interesting. I am right now, like you said, I reached between 250, 300,000 people in a very short period of time because I am different from the other survivors. I don't go into details, in dwelling on what happened to me. It's something that happened. And my motto in life is, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to be. And I choose to be within my means to be a happy person. As a matter of fact, I had a girlfriend. And when I introduced her to my friends, she used to extend the hand and she said, "Hi, my name is Anita. I'm bipolar." Who cares? Who asked you? But that was her identity. People identify themselves by how much money they have, by their spouse, beautiful car, different ways.
If they have six-pack abs, how they look, yeah.
My motto in life is, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to be. and I choose to be happy within my means. And that is my motto. So I don't have the best of everything, but I make the best of everything I have.
You said you tried to commit suicide at one point. I'm assuming that there have been times in your life where it's been very difficult to see the best in the world and maybe the best in yourself.
Yes, there was twice that I wanted to commit suicide. Once when I went through divorce, because I could not, coming from that generation, for me, divorce was worse than death. Okay? Again, thankfully, I didn't succeed. The second time is when I became homeless. So that brings me to the two challenges that I want to talk. I became homeless because people that I trusted betrayed me. And I'm very unhappy what's happening in this country. Number one, people have forgotten how to disagree in a civil way. Number two, if you pay attention to the news, to our leaders, okay, nobody is guilty. It's always somebody else's fault or circumstances. As a matter of fact, unless somebody can correct me, to the best of my knowledge, under the Biden administration, nobody was fired. No, nothing happens in a vacuum. And I said, you know something? What did I do to lead to the point that I became homeless? And as I started to think about it, I realized that I made two mistakes. Number one, I gave him cash. Number two, I did not put anything in writing. Prove it. So I said to myself, you know something? They are not guilty. I'm responsible. By taking the responsibility, okay, and saying they took advantage of my stupidity. Okay, all of a sudden, the need for revenge, to feel bad, guilty, whatever, dissipated. And I forgave them. As a matter of fact, if they would meet me on the street, and one of them would address me, I would talk to them. They're complete strangers. But I learned my lesson. Would I be friends with them? Absolutely not. But this is something that people have forgotten, to take responsibility for their own action. That's why many of them are still living in the past. I met a friend of mine. He was in business and his partner stole money from him. 40 years later. And he said, I forgave him. But when he talked about it, his voice came to the right. Okay. So he forgave him, okay, here, but not from here. And this is very difficult. And I forgave from the heart, and therefore I don't have any need for revenge, to feel angry or whatever it is. It happened.
Do you forgive the Nazis?
Yes.
You do?
But when I spoke at a Jewish school and I said I forgive, they asked me if I forgive. I said yes. About 3 students stormed out. But they did not hear what I had to say. I forgave the world that stood by and did nothing, but not the criminals. That brings me to another point, which is important. People like to generalize. Nazi. Number one, there are no Nazis today in this world. They are people that believe in the Nazi ideology. We have to call them neo-Nazi. When you talk about neo-Nazis, you talk about the present. When you talk about Nazis, you're talking about the past. But like in Romania, if you wanted to have a good job, like my father, he had to be part of the Communist Party. Did he believe in communists? He hated it. That's why he left the former Soviet Union and went to Romania, the lesser of two evils. But to get a job, you had to be part of the party. So that's why not everyone that was in the Nazi party was a Nazi. And that's why we have to be very careful, okay, not to generalize and to be specific. So I believe the Nazis to be the ones that believed in the ideology. The other thing is, because my father lost 40 people from 42, he vowed to himself he never will go to Germany, never set foot in Germany. Living with my parents, I felt the same way. Once I started to speak, I talked about reconciliation. Intellectually, it's very easy to talk about it. And now I'm faced with a challenge to go to Germany to meet with descendants of high-ranking Nazi criminals. And I was very hesitant. I did not know emotionally how it will affect me, but I believe in being authentic. That's why you have questions for me. You wanted to read them to me, and I said, no, I want to be authentic. I don't want to be rehearsed. So it was probably one of the best moves that I made. And people say that the Nazis did not want to talk. Oh boy, did they talk. But not what they did, what happened to them. And one person, Klaus, he loved his grandfather. And his grandfather talked about what happened to him. When he passed away, Klaus went in the attic and he found albums, which he was never shown. And in the albums, he found pictures and notes that he wrote. He was part of the Einsatzgruppen.
Oh, wow.
He documented what he did, what he saw, and wrote everything in it. So I was the first one that he showed it to. So that's why I'm saying, now we became friends. And that's why I'm saying it's very important not to let your emotions take over. And a lot of people deal with life with emotions instead of realizing what the reality is at that particular time. That brings me to another subject. I have a son. I have 2 grandchildren. I met them for the first time in 2011 because after my divorce, I went back to Israel and I was away for 5 years. I came back in 1988 and settled in New York, which is my last home. And he does not allow me to be in touch with my grandchildren. And I'm going to explain how did I overcome, being homeless, and how I dealt with not being able to be with my grandchildren and still remain a positive person. So let's go back first to being homeless. What I started to do, because I had no support system, I started to volunteer. And obviously when you will volunteer for something that you like, that means something. And I used to volunteer for 18 different organizations because each one gave me something that was missing in my life. And if you want, I'll give you 2 examples, which are important. So that was, I used to put every week over 62 hours, and that helped me recover. Do you want me to tell you the 2 examples?
Please, please.
One of them, I lived in Brooklyn. I was not familiar with Manhattan. So just if I had to go to some place, I used to go and come back. When I became homeless, I got a place, in Manhattan. And once I started to volunteer for an organization called Big Apple Greeter. So I used to take people from other states and other countries and show them around the city for free. But the perk was that, number one, I had to learn about Manhattan to be able to show them around. Number two, I met people from all over the world. I had the personal contact. okay, the human touch. And at the same time, I made a number of friends and I learned about different cultures. I was invited by one of the families. I was invited to go to England. And let's assume this is the living room. And here is the big wall. In the center, I've never seen it anywhere else, there was a huge portrait. Okay, in the middle, nothing else, of me with the family. Unbelievable. So that was a very great experience because I learned a lot of different cultures and meet very, very interesting people. With my son and grandson, how do you overcome something like that? And all of us have a want and a need. My want is to go to Australia. There are so many beautiful places in the world. Why Australia? Put a gun to my head and I cannot give you a good answer. If it happens and I will be invited to Australia, wonderful. If not, I can go into the internet and see any city I want. But I have a need, and a need must be fulfilled. My need is to teach and to share. Okay, right now, the podcast, speaking with you, okay, the audience, you give me that ability, the possibility for me to fulfill my need. But I tell the kids that for the time that we are together, you are my substitute grandchildren. And it fills my heart when I get letters from fourth graders saying, I'm so happy that for 2 hours I was able to be your grandchild. So we have to find ways to deal with the trauma in a positive way. Okay.
Do you think you'll ever be able to reconcile with your son and hopefully?
Well, very good question. People have tried to intervene on my behalf for 11 and a half years. He's a very smart boy, but emotions overtook everything. Nothing was successful. But for your audience, especially the young people, don't you ever lose hope. Somebody that knows my story, I think we met between 10 and 15 years ago, haven't talked to her since. She found out there is somebody that does it for a living to reconcile people.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
He called me, but he does it for a living, and I told him I live under the poverty line and I can't afford you. He said, I will do something for you for free. I will write a letter of apology. And I told him it has to be an apology without apologizing. I did the best that I could with the information that I had at the last time. Would I act today differently? Most likely, yes. But with the information that I had at the time, I did the best that I could. Okay? I sent him the letter. He answered for the first time.
That's amazing.
He does not know what kind of a relationship he wants to have with me, but apparently the grandchildren are interested in knowing me. So this happened in March. Nothing has happened so far, so hopefully he will set up a Zoom either by the end of this month or next month. Why it takes so long, I don't know, but it's irrelevant. There is a window of opportunity, and again, don't ever lose hope. And hope played a very important role that people survived during the Nazi regime.
Are you comfortable sharing what you think you might do differently if you had the opportunity to go back?
I probably would have not gone back to Israel.
After the divorce, you would have stayed.
Right. So I would stay and endure all the problems. As a matter of fact, by going back to Israel, part of me has been lost forever, which my son does not understand. I used to cry every single night because I hated what my ex did, not against me, but with him against me. Okay, what she did to him. And I cried for years, for about 5 years, because I did not want him to feel my hatred towards my ex. As a matter of fact, when we were separated, my son, let's assume that she brought him to me. This is the other side of the street. Okay, from the other side, he would scream, Abba, Abba. When she came, he never did. And one day he came to me and said, Abba, I love you more than Ima.
Oh, no.
Internally, it made me very happy. However, I told him, you know something, you have two parents, and you should love both of them the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we tend to underestimate, like I told you the story about the two second graders, underestimate the intelligence of young people and what they can understand. A couple of months later, he came back and he said the same thing. Abba, I love you more than Eva. And then he looked at me and he said, shucks, I forgot. I'm supposed to love you both guys the same.
You know, it's...
And he understood and she did not understand. So even she knows that I met my son, I met my grandchildren, and she's not saying, okay, you know, you have only one father, why don't you talk to him? I mean, it's 42 years old, 2 years long. Give me a break. It's over.
It's
Get
tough.
the life.
I think one of the things I'm most grateful for with my mother, because my parents got divorced as well, and my mom took the same approach as you, which is, you know, even though she had a horrible marriage and it was a horrible marriage, we'll just put it at that. She was very, very deliberate to not speak poorly of my father, and took the same attitude of, you have two parents. If I want you to have a relationship with him, even though I don't want a relationship with him. So I think it's something that many kids of divorce struggle with when the parents let their own.
As a matter of fact, I wrote a manuscript. It was at the most prestigious book fair in the world, in Frankfurt. And I thought about my life, okay, from the beginning, not in a chronological way, based on a theme, until actually my divorce. Interestingly enough, it was not published because in a certain way, it's a self-help book. Now, you have heard of Howard Cosell.
I don't think I know his name. Howard Cosell?
Yes.
I don't know who he is. The name sounds familiar, but I have no clue who he is.
He was a football commentator.
Oh, then there's a real chance I definitely don't know who he is, because I have never watched football.
And when I wrote the manuscript, I had a certain style. It was every chapter was about 2-3 pages. So it starts the beginning with a quote, the story, how it affected me, and my suggestions. And when I saw Howard Cosell's book, okay, obviously it was published, it was a celebrity, he used the same style. I was completely surprised. He used the same style the way I did. So anyway, it was the genre was not at that time on vogue, so it was not published. And my son has the manuscript. It probably could be a bestseller, okay? But he does not want to give it back to me. So, okay. That's life. And like I said before, and I'm going to repeat it, I don't have the best of everything. I make the best of everything I have.
Sami, before we get into some other questions, I would like to ask, have you connected with other Holocaust survivors, and do they have any stories that you've heard from other survivors that you think are important to share?
Yes, there is an organization, Self-Help, that basically organizes every 3 months a luncheon, 12 to 2, Okay, so we meet together, but we just say hi, we talk about different things. We don't talk about the Holocaust. The first time when you meet somebody, you ask them, where were you? Tell them where I was, and that's the end of the Holocaust story. But I want to talk about something else.
Okay, please.
October 7. As a Holocaust survivor, I never thought that I will see the hatred that is happening not only in this country, but worldwide. In some of the most prestigious campuses in this country, some of the brightest young people that we have, future leaders of this country and the world, when they will graduate, they will become educated idiots. And to Iran, they are useful idiots. The other thing is we just celebrated Passover. And there is a saying in the Haggadah, the story of exile from Egypt, that says that in every generation they try to annihilate us. What's happening in the Middle East, specifically Gaza, the war is not against civilians. It's against the terrorist group Hamas. At the same time, the IDF is the only military in the world that is risking their own people to save civilians. They have in Gaza 1,300 tunnels. I think the longest one is 4 kilometers. They are all booby-trapped. You know how many people, how difficult it is to kill the combatants? There's also, they talk a lot that we murdered 20,000 civilians. Actually, they use 40,000, but they forget that half of them, they were combatants. But very few people know that in Congo, they murdered 500,000. In other countries, nobody talks about it. No Jews, no news. Okay. And it says in the Haggadah that in every generation they try to annihilate us. We prevailed. What happens in the Middle East, we will prevail, we will win. And to the world, I have a very strong message. We are here to stay, whether you like it or not. Am Israel Chai. The other thing that I don't like is we have bright students from the Middle East. For them to come and to say, death to Israel, death to America, why would you come here received with open arms and wish death to America? If you don't like it, send them back. But that's my opinion. And whatever I'm telling you, especially for the audience, you don't have to agree with everything I say. All I'm asking is to respect that I may have a different opinion.
You know, there's so much we could talk about with that. I'll start with what we're seeing on university campuses, which has been jarring in many, many ways. I think what really took me by the greatest amount of surprise, even more than the encampments and more than the radical students, was there was a congressional hearing in which the presidents of Harvard and MIT and UPenn were testifying. And I believe it was Representative Elise Stefanik who was asking these presidents of the universities. She said, is it allowed on your campus? Does it count as free speech to call for the genocide of Jews? And the presidents of Harvard and MIT and UPenn all said,
and Columbia.
It's context dependent. And Elise Stefanik, she lost her mind. She was like, in what context is it okay to call for the genocide of Jews? And every single time these three representatives said it's context dependent. Now you just look at that and you substitute any other group of people. Is it okay to call for the genocide of African Americans? Is it okay to call for the genocide of Asians? Is it okay to call for the genocide of women? Is it okay to call for the genocide of any other group? Under any other circumstance, it would be completely and utterly reprehensible. There would be no hesitation. But when it comes to Jews, all of a sudden, it's context dependent. And that for me was like, oh, wow, we're in a very, very difficult place. And going further from that now, and it leads to a question I wanted to ask you, is really leading into how something like the Holocaust was able to happen. I don't think that we're at risk of a Holocaust or a major issue within the next 5, 10, 15 years. But like we spoke about earlier, the Holocaust started immediately post-World War I. And it took many, many years before that became the norm. Are you concerned for Jews in America or even around the world? Are you concerned for, based on what we're seeing, what is being said at the highest level, and not only the acceptance of it, but the rejoicement around it? Does that concern you?
Well, I'm going to use the example. At one time, Columbia University was the most anti-Jewish campus. Right now, it's Harvard. What happened in Columbia University when they took over and everything else, the reason that it kept escalating is what happened with the Holocaust. There were no consequences. So if there are no consequences, if people don't react in time, the administration did not take any right steps. It kept escalating. Why wouldn't they escalate? Why wouldn't they take over the room and everything else? It's normal. There have to be consequences. And a lot of them were not even students. They were professional agitators and everything else. And people want to belong. And right now, with the social media, everything became oppressor, oppressed. They do not see the other picture beyond that. Mm-hmm. And Israel is a country that you should not compare with other countries. It has different sets of things. Like, for instance, when you try to apply whatever we call here justice, does not apply to Israel. Mm-hmm. It's totally different. I'm, as an optimist, I am convinced that the young people will make the changes. The pendulum always swings, and eventually it always settles in the middle. We were many times on the extreme one side or the other side. Now, to understand why I believe that the pendulum will swing, the Holocaust will never happen again. It's a unique moment in history. It's an industrialized murder, most recorded crime in human history. But personally, from my experience, for talking to about 250, 300,000 young people, and being an optimist, I am convinced that they, will make the necessary changes, and what's happening today will come to the middle. But people are forgetting one thing: learning from history. And let's give an example what happened in 1961. Kennedy came to Khrushchev and told him, take out the missiles from Cuba. Khrushchev played dumb. What missiles? I don't have any missiles. He says, wonderful, we'll go to war. Suddenly Khrushchev found the missiles and took them out. But Khrushchev said something that people have forgotten. I do not have to fight the United States militarily. They will destroy themselves. Mm-hmm. Take a look. It took 60 years, little by little by little, propaganda, social media, everything else, to be where we are today. Mm-hmm. It will take a long time. Not going to happen suddenly. But eventually things will change. Take a look what happened in example DEI. I was always, and even on media, I was against DEI. You know, there's a saying, well-intentioned people, okay, the road leads with well-intentioned people leads to hell. What happened is the intentions was very good, but it is in many ways racist. One of the things I did not like is the word equity, and basically equality. There is no such thing. The most equal country in the world, former Soviet Union, a communist country, everybody is equal. Even in the most equal society in the world, there is a small group of people that are above everybody else. I spoke to the kids and I said the greatest invention invented by man was communism. And I said, let's assume that we are all equal. And we work in the same factory, and you are the manager, so obviously as a manager, more responsibility, you'll get more money. To be equal, you will have to give some of your money to give it to me. Would you be willing to do it? The kid looked at me and says, hell no. So we are all individuals, okay? So and that's why I did not like the word equity. Guess what? It took a long time, and right now, equity, okay, is illegal. So like the example, like with equity, things will change and the pendulum will swing.
You know, I want to talk more about, you also mentioned...
So I'm very optimistic. I have no problem believing that things will go to the left.
You spoke about Gaza and the number of civilians who have been killed, and I actually think this is a good transition into it regarding equity or equality, which they're different, but many people will they hold Israel to the standard.
By the way, I believe in equal opportunity,
not equal outcome.
Equal opportunity, not. Both of us graduated from the schools, same grades, everything. There is something undefinable that will differentiate between the two of us. Mm-hmm. So there is no such as equal.
Correct. In regard to Gaza, and I think the standard that people hold Israel to, I hear many people who have no clue about, never mind the geopolitical situation, the history of it, but no military background, just saying, well, what Israel's doing is too much, what Israel's doing is too much. And I'll ask them, what would you do? How could they do it better? And they have no response. And if we're talking about equality, one of the words that they'll use here is, what their response is, disproportionate. That's the word that they'll often use. And so if we want to talk about equality and we want to talk about a proportionate response, well, if we get really to the nitty-gritty here, when Hamas came in on October 7th and killed over 1,200 innocent people and raped 800 women and took 250 hostages, if we want equality, does that mean that you would prefer Israel go into Gaza and rape 800 women and kill 1,200 innocent people and take over 250 hostages? Because that's what equality is. So if you're really, what you're looking for is equality, I don't think you're going to like what you get. And people often will hold Israel to a standard that they would never hold anyone else to.
Correct.
And going back to what you were saying about the tunnels and the booby traps, Hamas, their combatants don't wear their uniforms, so the IDF troops have no clue who they're fighting.
They are surrounded by civilians. How do you kill them without this one?
Correct.
Remember what happened. Nobody said anything. What happened in Germany, World War II? Mm-hmm. What happened when they bombed Japan?
Yep.
How many people died and everything else?
Hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
Nobody said anything. It's only when it comes to Jews. Again, no Jews, no news.
I think...
And the interesting thing is that they try to compare what happened, what's happening right now in Gaza, with the Holocaust. Please don't. Even the Nazis were not that brutal. Mm. If you have to make comparison, compare it to the brutality of ISIS. Okay, Holocaust, again, I'm going to repeat it as often as I can. It's a unique moment in history, will never happen again. We cannot make comparisons to it. Okay, in Gaza, what's happening is not industrialized murder. We try to save them. Okay, it's not the most recorded crime in human history. So there is no comparison whatsoever. Okay, their brutality can be compared to ISIS. Yes.
I want to take a minute to explain one of the worst narratives I've heard around Gaza, and one of the things that people will say is what Israel is doing is, imagine if there was someone took hostages and brought them into a school. You don't just blow up the school, and it's a false representation of what Israel is doing. The easiest way to explain this is, let's say someone takes a hostage and they go into a school, but now across the street that you have another school, and the school where the hostages are now firing rockets and shooting at the school across the street, and you have to protect the school across the street. What do? Do you how do you get into the school to save the hostages who were taken while also protecting the school that's across the street? It's not as simple as Israel's just blowing up this school with hostages inside. Israel is the school that's directly across the street that has rockets being fired at every day, never mind from Gaza, but also from Yemen, also from Iran, from all over the world, from Lebanon. So it's a false representation of what's happening. And it more often than not comes from people who don't understand the situation. And that's,
or they don't want to understand.
Or they don't want to. And that, for me, and I don't think I'm as optimistic as you. I think I'm very optimistic. That's what concerns me, is that there are many people in the same way, and I mentioned it earlier, Hitler was a genius with how he used
dark genius, but a genius.
He used the Hitler Youth to propagandize an entire generation of people. Right. And I feel like now what we're seeing on social media, and even in schools, or people are being indoctrinated to believe that what we've been taught about history is false.
Things will get worse. Eventually they will get better, because they will get tired of it.
I hope so.
Okay, they will get tired. I am convinced that the world will change for the better. Maybe not in my lifetime, okay, but there's no question that it will not continue the way it is right now. And the most important is that each one of us, you're doing it via the podcast and everything else. I do it by visiting schools, campuses, organizations. So each one of us can do something to make it a better world. And I'm going to restate as often as I can, the only way that we can change this world is only through education and love instead of hate. Will it be easy? No. Will it take time? Yes. But things will change. I'm convinced of it.
Let me ask you a question. Every time I do a conversation or a post like this, whether it's with you or even I had a man from Gaza on a couple weeks ago who he's lost 33 family members in this war. I've had Rudy Rockman, an IDF soldier, come on as well. Every time I discuss anything not related to fitness, which is my profession, I lose money, I lose subscribers, I lose followers. There are people who get very mad at me, but I feel very strongly that if I have a platform in which I have the opportunity to educate people, I need to use it. I know many people who are colleagues of mine, not even necessarily Jewish, but colleagues of mine who they see injustice, they see what's wrong, and they choose not to talk about it because they think it will hurt their business. And I want to know, what are your thoughts on that, especially looking at the woman who came to save you, who risked her life and her whole family's life to give you milk, what would your advice be to people who are worried about losing money, losing business, who are staying silent for fear of that?
Number one is not to be afraid. And if you have a mission, if your business is not just about making money, you will find that you will be successful by being strong in your mission. People are afraid to talk, for instance, when I go to some schools. Oh, you cannot talk about October 7th. Whatever I told you was not political.
It's a fact.
Okay, but how are you going to teach the young people about the truth if you don't talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
So by silencing, you are actually perpetuating a false myth.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a problem. And that's why I'm saying fear leads to anger, leads to hate. And if you are afraid, you are perpetuating what's happening today. And especially when you have an audience. If it's in a one-on-one, it's a different story. You can be friends or not friends with that particular person. But when you have an audience, your mission should be to educate them. And I tell the young people, you cannot change anybody. You can change only somebody's perspective. To understand what I mean by that, we use the word 6 million murdered. I don't know about your audience, about you, but for me it's a number. I cannot relate to it. But let's bring it to a common denominator, and you will understand what I mean by changing somebody's perspective. If you would be on your feet and silent for 1 minute for every victim of the Holocaust, you would be on your feet, okay? 6 million minutes. You would be on your feet, okay? And silent for 11 and a half years. It's a totally different perspective of the tragedy, what happened. And actually, there were 11 million people that were murdered. People don't talk, for instance, about Stalin. Everybody thinks Hitler is the biggest murderer, but he murdered, 11 million people. They were not Germans. Stalin murdered 25 million. They were all Russians. So we are very selective in what we hear, what we want to hear, and what we want to believe. And we have to have an open mind.
And Mao murdered 20 million, maybe 60 million. I think even now in modern day, we look at what's happening in Syria or what happened under Bashar al-Assad with 600,000 innocent people killed, and no one talks about it.
Nobody knows.
Even now in Syria, since they ran Bashar al-Assad out, we see innocent Druze and innocent Christians being slaughtered, and no one's talking about it. No one discusses it. It's
talking about Ukraine, if you want to.
Yes, please, of course.
Yeah. So I mentioned Kennedy could not afford a nuclear power to be 90 miles away from the United States. Russia could not afford to have a Ukraine, a nuclear power, being part of NATO.
Yeah.
At the same time, people are forgetting the struggle, the difficulties that these two people had together. Yes, Russia took over Crimea under Obama. Yes, the people are forgetting that the Ukrainians murdered, I think, about 18,000 people from the areas of Ukraine where the Russians were. I believe it was in 2014. So the interesting part is by united, there were two attempts for a ceasefire. United States and Germany opposed it. The interesting part is initially, and this is what happens when people don't look at just what's happening now. Let's look at the big pictures. Initially, Putin, in my opinion, wanted Crimea to be recognized by the world, being part of Russia, and the areas where the Russians lived in Ukraine. Okay, today, I believe, if I'm mistaken, please correct me, they have, I think, 20% of Ukraine under their occupation. Now, what people are forgetting, Russia cannot occupy Ukraine. It's too big. Ukraine military will not defeat, the Russian army. Putin does not care. As long as he have the military behind him, he does not care how many people will die. The war will continue. And the only thing that will happen is innocent people will die. And that's why I don't understand. Okay, I heard reasons why United States is providing support for Ukrainians. But the only thing what happens is a stalemate. Nobody will win, and innocent people will die. They said, well, if Russia wins, then China will occupy Taiwan, blah, blah, blah. There are different reasons why people believe that we should help. I'm saying, in my opinion, and I said it for years, we should not help Ukraine. Okay?
You think it's prolonging the war and causing more innocent deaths?
Yes. Because neither one is going to win. There is no way that Russia can occupy Ukraine. It's too big. The military is not going to win the Russians. Putin doesn't care how many people will die, how many soldiers. He's a dictator. But they had opportunities, and the difference between the communists, China, Russia, North Korea, they have a long-term vision. They don't care how long it takes. Here, it's short-sighted, every 4 years. And it's a totally different strategy.
That's a great point.
But, unless it becomes the law, whatever Trump is doing, the next president, if he's not Republican, will disappear. The same thing like with Biden. Whatever he did, with Trump, would disappear. So this is the problem that we are having here in the United States. And in Israel, the biggest problem, from my perspective, we have too many parties. So a party of one has more power than the party has gotten the most votes, because he can swing. Okay, so they have to give in a lot of things. And people don't understand it. It's a totally different regime.
It is a very good point that here it's a function of every 4 years, whereas when you're under a dictator, it's as long as they live. And it's a completely different strategy.
The other ones will perpetuate. Personally, I like Bibi. I liked him for a long time. But he has made a very bad mistake. A leader, a good one, elevates somebody to take his place when he's gone. Bibi pushed all of them away.
Yeah.
Okay? That was, in my opinion, his mistake. And he does even what happened in October 7, he does not have the whole population with him. Which I'm trying to understand. Every parent wants their child to become home. What price do you pay for it? My personal opinion, we have right now, I think, 25 live hostages. And we want to give up a lot for the dead hostages. In my opinion, the price is too high. How many people we lost, wounded, displaced people, and everything else. what I would say at this particular stage, flood the tunnels,
Even with the living hostages inside?
even with the hidden.
Oh, wow.
The price is too high. They lost between 800 and 1,000 soldiers. For what? They've given up prisoners, life sentences. They're willing to give up for, I don't know, a dozen corpses. 1,000 people with life sentences. Doesn't make sense. At what price?
I think this is the first thing you said that I really disagree with, and the only thing that I would say is, I have many friends in
It
that.
may sound, it may not sound nice coming from me, but I'm saying it's like my father used to say, the Jews are more Catholic than the Pope.
The counter to that I would say is, I have many friends and family in the IDF, as I'm sure you do as well, and every single one of them I know is proud to risk and potentially give their life to save the innocent hostages who are there. And I'm not putting one life above another.
But what price? At what price?
My personal opinion is, if someone is willing to fight to save them, I want to give them that opportunity. And if there's a soldier who says, I'm not willing to do it, then you have that right. But if there are soldiers who say, this is my land and this is what we've done in the past.
I agree with you, but this is not up to the soldiers.
Correct. Correct. That's exactly right.
So I'm not talking about the soldiers.
Yep.
Okay, they are heroes. Mm-hmm. There is no question. I'm not talking about the soldiers.
Yes.
I am talking about the administration.
Yeah, that's a fair distinction.
And they have to come to a point that is say, if they're not going to flood the tunnels, and the hostages and the civilians that are there, they will never be able to destroy Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole war is for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my personal opinion.
I understand.
The only way you can do it is by having what we call casualties of war.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So right now they're at 25. Okay. My personal opinion, flood the damn thing. 1,300 tunnels, each one booby-trapped.
Yeah, that's, to be very honest, I don't think I agree, but that's okay.
But you know something? That's the interesting part. We disagree in a civil way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have different opinions.
And that's okay.
I'm a Holocaust survivor. I'm saying something that is very controversial.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel the price that we paid and will pay is too great. 1,000 criminals with life sentences for a few corpses?
I don't agree with releasing.
And they're back to murder Jews.
Correct. And not only Jews, but the people who've been released with life sentences, they were butchering their own people. They were butchering Gazans. I mean, Hamas has been terrible to the Gazan people, as
Right.
Ahmed, sat in that chair a couple weeks ago and spoke about how horrible Hamas is to its own people. And I think people don't realize that these prisoners who are in Israeli prisons, who went to prison for killing Jews and for killing, not even just Jews, killing Israelis, killing Arab Israelis.
Israel has provided them with cement to build homes.
Yes.
Israel has provided with electricity, with water,
Yes.
with everything else, and then you turn against Israel.
Yeah, it's for those who claim to care about innocent Gazan civilians. It is not good for innocent Gazan civilians to have these criminals back in Gaza, because it's going to be worse for them. And even Yahya Sinwar was known as the butcher of Khan Yunis.
Because
He killed his own people and slaughtered his own people.
No.
It's not good for them. My optimistic side says there has to be a way outside of flooding the tunnels. I don't know what it is. I don't have the right answer, other than let those soldiers who are willing to fight for their land to do it.
I have nothing against soldiers. I admire the soldiers.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
the West in Israel has never learned one thing.
What is it?
The Arabs do not understand compromise. It's only weakness. And I was not surprised of the attack what happened in Israel in October 7. I was shocked at their brutality. But what happened is Hamas used to throw 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 missiles. Israel went in, destroyed a few tunnels, and came home. Why did they expect different results by using old tactics? And for instance, let's take Eric Sharon. Sharon gave Gaza for free. At least take out from their charter the destroying Israel, that you're willing to work with this one. Why give them for free? Taking 10,000 Israelis and, bring them back forcefully. Why? The other thing is, I personally don't believe in land for peace. I don't understand this concept. It has to be peace for peace.
Agreed.
So I'm not a leader. So basically what I'm saying is Israel created a problem. Take a look. Jordan did not want them. Lebanon did not want them. Syrians did not want them. They actually murdered 80,000 Palestinians. Egypt did not want them, does not want them. The only country that decided to save them is Israel. So they created a problem. Now they have to live with it. And unless they are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, and flood the tunnels, the Hamas will stay in power.
Do you believe that, let's say they flood the tunnels, which again I'm not for, but let's say they did flood the tunnels, all gone. Do you think Hamas would rise up, or another organization would rise up as a result?
No, they will be able to prevent it.
How do you think that? How would they do that?
Well, in my opinion, every organization starts very small. Listen to what they have to say. Watch their actions and take action immediately. Don't wait until they grow in power.
Okay.
But Israel, after they destroy Hamas, they eliminate them, they have to stay in Gaza until there comes a government they can work with. That's my personal. Is it reactionary? Fine. But I'm not afraid to say what I believe in.
And that's one of the things I respect most about you, and I try and do as well. I try and say what I believe. And
the only thing I'm asking people not to agree with me is just to use what I say as food for thought. You don't have to agree with me, but maybe there is something that you can relate. Okay.
Let me ask you this. I know because you had mentioned Trump, and you had said earlier that calling people Nazis now is disingenuous. If we're going to call someone a Nazi, it's a neo-Nazi. How do you feel as a Holocaust survivor when people call Trump a Nazi?
It can be, I can say they are ignorant. I can say the media, they listen to the media. No matter what I say, I don't pay attention to it. It's not people that I want to associate with. So I do it my way, you do it your way. Everybody has the opportunity to do something about it. My way is to educate the next generation because I feel this is their time. And I want them to become active. Knowledge without action means nothing. And somehow they have to bring the media, and that's why I send the person that I admire the most in this country is Martin Luther King Jr. He brought other ethnic groups with him, marched nationwide, brought the media with him in many groundbreaking legislations have been adopted because of him. So it's a very good example what the Jews should do, especially the young people, and to unite. The only prediction that I can make that I'm sure of, this world will be a better one, okay, in the future. When? I don't know.
I do have some questions from readers if you'd like me to ask you some of those questions.
By all means.
Okay.
I will answer any question, as many as they have.
Okay. The first question.
Again, I'm going to repeat for your audience.
Yes.
You can ask me questions on any subject you want. On Clubhouse, you know that I answer questions for 16 hours straight.
Yes.
And I was confronted. It was not just about the Holocaust. So everything goes. I'm only asking to respect that I may have a different opinion. But I will be very honest.
Millie1416 asked, how do you respond to people who claim the Holocaust never happened?
That's a very good question. Now, the question is personally or generally?
Personally.
Am I talking, let's assume that I'm talking to you.
Yes.
And you're a Holocaust denier.
I'm a Holocaust denier.
Okay, I'll give you an example. I believe in dialogue, not confrontation. And I was at UC Berkeley, and I found out that a Lebanese Christian student had extreme negative feelings about Israel. And I was wondering if he would be willing to talk to me. He said yes. And when I asked him, why do you feel so strongly about Israel? I made sure that facially I did not give him the opportunity to misinterpret that I'm confrontational. The way you treat a person, that's how they will treat you. And by asking questions and both of us listening to each other, hearing what each other had to say, after about 45 minutes, we shook hands. Okay. When it's coming to Holocaust denier, let's say that you come to me. Maybe you can do it. Play the actor's role. Tell me with conviction that Israel is an apartheid state.
That's going to be very difficult for me to do in 1 second.
Okay,
let me get my action.
A play.
Yeah. No, of course. Sami, Israel is an apartheid genocidal state.
You know something? I agree with you. Can you imagine the shock that a Holocaust survivor, an Israeli, a Jew, would agree with you? And then I'm coming, you know something? You brought up the subject. You really must be knowledgeable. What is apartheid? Okay, where did you learn about it? Who told you about it? I don't have to tell him that he's stupid, that he's an idiot. Let him find out by himself. Okay? And then, after, based on that person's answer, I have to make two decisions. If that person has a closed mind, very politely, I will say, let's agree to disagree and finish. However, if that person has an open mind, and I am knowledgeable on the subject, I don't make up things, I'm knowledgeable on the subject, I will continue the conversation. The first thing, in my opinion, is to diffuse that person's idea, whatever he has. So first one, I agree with you. What difference does it make?
Right.
But he will be shocked. And then all of a sudden, okay, I don't know how that person will answer, but that's irrelevant because then I have to make the decision. Does he have an open mind or does he have a closed mind?
And you come to a point in which you can decide, is this conversation even worth it or not? Got it.
Correct.
I like that.
But I would not get upset. I would not get emotional about it. Okay? When you talk with emotions, I mean, things can go wrong.
That's exactly right.
Okay? Just be cool, calm, collected. Okay?
Carms252 asked, Sami, did you ever have feelings of guilt that you survived and so many others did not?
Never. As a matter of fact, in my particular case, I have been asked if there is anything that I would change, what happened in my life. And I said, absolutely not. Whatever happened in my life at each time, I believe in meant to be, Basher. I was at the right time, at the right place. I learned from it, and I'm here where I'm supposed to be. If I would have changed the slightest thing, I wouldn't be where I am today. Possibly in a better place, a worse place, but not where I am today. And to illustrate what I mean by that, meant to be. I was close to death within a split second 3 times. The third time was the one that changed my life forever. I believed in coincidence. Today I don't. I was coming back from Atlantic City to New York. It is fall, drizzling, and I did not know that wet leaves are worse than ice. And I liked to speed. For some strange reason, a premonition, I was in the right lane. And somebody pushed me off. And I would say, like from here, this distance, maybe 3 times longer, maybe more, I flew. Had no control over the car. Hit the tree head on.
Oh, wow.
I had the seatbelt. With the seatbelt, I cracked the window. The car completely totaled. And I walked out without a scratch.
That's wild.
And I said, I'm never going to be afraid. When my time comes, there is nothing I can do about it. Until then, so people ask me, you live in Harlem, you use the subway at midnight, at 1 o'clock? And I said, yeah, no problem, no fear. I had the hat. This is very important, talking about the media, okay? There was a general, the mayor took it, and he never even thanked me for it, okay? Mayor of New York. I had a hat that said no fear. There was a national rally. Every major Jewish organization co-sponsored it. They expected several 100,000, maybe 500,000 to be there. Only 3,000 showed up. Wonderful speakers. A senator. A congressman. No Jewish leader was there. The media was not there. And nobody knows about it. Not without the media, nothing will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best example. And I had that hat, and I did it, you know. But the mayor, there was an event, and I came with that hat, and constantly, I love the hat. I love it. I love it. I got so tired hearing it, how much I loved it. I said, here, I have it.
You know, your approach to living with no fear reminds me of the Druze in Israel. And for anyone who doesn't know, Druze. I have some one of my favorite places to hang out is in the Carmel in the Druze neighborhoods, and some of them have told me that they believe that when their time comes, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. And it's funny because what you said, you speed, they've said the same thing. Like, yeah, we're a little bit more reckless than maybe we should be, because if it's our time, it's our time. And if it's not our time, it's not our time.
Right. By the way, how did my parents meet? They were working at the same factory in Chernovitz, textile factory. My father asked her out, and she said, I can go out with you. I'm seeing somebody else. So my father said, you can go out with him for as long as you want, but you will be mine. They've been together for 65 years.
You do have your father's confidence. That is for sure.
Not when it comes to women. That's why I'm twice divorced.
Kess0822 asked, Sami, how did you choose a life of forgiveness instead of bitterness for what happened?
It's something that I lived with it all my life. I could never put it in words, but I told you with that Make-A-Wish kid when he came with a button.
Mm-hmm.
And there was there, I saw at age 64, the sign Survivor. That is the first time that I realized that I have never been a victim. Whatever happened in my life, I've always been a survivor. I have never questioned why me. It was always, where do I go from here? What do I do now? So it's not something that I said I have to do it. It just was there.
I think your message around victimhood is one of my favorite things you've said, and I think it's one of, especially nowadays, people need to hear it and understand that it's something they can choose to be a survivor, to be a victim, and it changes the mentality immediately.
Even my mother could not understand, coming from that generation, how did I become so optimistic?
Tail Shanson asked, and I know we spoke about it before, but I would like to get an answer just on this specific question.
Yes.
She said, Sami, what do you want people to know about how we got to the point of the Holocaust happening?
The only thing, from my personal opinion, is be proud of who you are. Don't be afraid to talk. And when everything, hate, bullying, everything starts very small. Stand up by saying, they're too small, it will go away, whatever it is. That will just escalate to a point that later on will be very difficult to get rid of it. The best example that I can give is, for instance, post-Holocaust, the best example is BDS. They started in the campuses. People did not react in time. It went to high school. They succeeded. They are right now in middle school. And people say, boycott Israel. Well, if you want to boycott Israel, go ahead. Don't use the cell phone. Don't use many, many things invented by Israel. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. But then you cannot use the cell phone.
Correct. You can't use the cell phone. I always say
and this is just one example, but there are many other things.
When in Israel,
they don't know what they're talking about.
The camera that surgeons use to go into non-invasive surgery is invented in Israel, and I was like, okay, you got to tell your surgeon not to use that. They got to just cut you open, have a much more invasive surgery. Beach and Sun 17 asked, Sami, could you give advice on how people can best confront prejudice today? What can they do today when they're faced with prejudice?
Against prejudice?
Yes.
I have been asked, for some reason, people ask for my advice. And I use my personal experiences, background, and everything else. And I'm very happy to give the advice. My best advice, specifically for that particular person, is educate yourself on the subject that is of interest to you. Is climate change of interest to you? Educate yourself in it. Are you interested in Israel? Educate yourself in Israel. Are you interested in the conflict between Israel and Palestine? Educate yourself. I tell the young people that the most important person in your life is YOU. If you want to be respected, you must learn to respect yourself. You want to be loved, you must love yourself. You cannot give something that you do not have. You cannot influence somebody else if you're not knowledgeable on the subject. So the most important thing is education. And not to be afraid.
Specific to the Holocaust and potentially Israel and Israel-Palestine, do you have any recommended books or places to begin for someone who is looking to educate themselves? Is there any recommended resources?
There are many books. There are many, let's say, podcasts. There are many films, documentaries. What you are experiencing is something totally different from history.
Mm-hmm.
You are right now you're witnessing living history. And I became a motivational speaker. I don't know if I told you or not about it, but I became a speaker because a sixth grader. I told the story.
Yes.
Okay. And the interesting thing is, when I was at the Washington, D.C., on November 1st, November 2nd of 2003, I met somebody like me, and that was living history. By being able to ask him questions, I felt for the first time at age 63 that I belong to both generations. And that's what your audience and you are witnessing right now, and this is living history. Totally different from reading from the books and everything else. You cannot get the same sense. Like I gave you the story, that for me, in pain, determined to show to the kids, is very small part what people had to endure to survive.
I think personally, when people ask me, where do I learn more about the Holocaust, my best answer I can give is to first go to a local Holocaust museum. I feel like it's, and I know nowadays everyone just wants everything at their fingertips, have it delivered to their door, but there are Holocaust museums all over the world, and to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 hours going through, I think it's one of the best things that people can do as just at least an introductory, and to
Correct.
give it to the magnitude of it. And one of my favorite parts, I've been to many Holocaust museums, whether it was the one in Washington, D.C. or Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. The one in Washington, D.C., they'll give you the name of one victim of the Holocaust when you walk in. Then Yad Vashem, when you go into the room with that one candle that's lit and it looks like millions of candles, it's constantly saying names of victims. And I think, like you spoke about earlier, 6 million, there's no way to relate to it. But when you get the one name of that one individual, it humanizes it. It makes it far more real. So I think that it's a good place to begin for people who...
Something interesting happened when I was at the March of the Living. From the 40 people that were murdered, I know only of 2 that were murdered in Auschwitz. And I was looking through the books and I did not find their names. However, in Israel at Yad Vashem, I saw the names of both of them.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So I posted it on Instagram, so you cannot see. The other thing that surprised me when I was in Poland, I lived in a very small town that only about 32 years ago, it became a city. You can imagine how small it was. And on a map of the world, instead of seeing in Romania the big cities, okay, you will see it on Instagram. You cannot read it because it's too small, okay? I saw the word Regin where I lived, Reghin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sami, last question from readers. Susan McEighty7, she said, Sami, if you have one message for the world today, for future generations, what would it be?
The things that I already said. Don't allow anybody to silence you. You have a very strong voice. Speak up. Okay? There are many people that are trying to silence us, the media, whatever it is. Don't. Speak your mind. I don't care what you believe, but it has to be educated information. Don't believe based on a slogan, okay, or just because your people, your friends, belong to that group. I used to, in the past, what I used to like to do, I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and as far as I remember, on the front page there was always a topic, and there was pro and con. Nobody has monopoly on truth. Okay? Each one has something that makes sense. But listening and reading both sides, I could make an informed decision. And I don't care what you believe in, as long as it is an informed decision. I used to like, as a young person, to debate. And if you were a communist, I was an anti-communist. To convince me, you had to bring up the strongest point. And I learned from you. When there was the reverse role, okay, I was exactly the different. And by listening to both sides, okay, I was able to form an informed decision.
I love that.
So for me, okay, education for yourself and to educate other people, in my opinion, is probably the most important thing. And believe in yourself, who you are, where you are, and remember, it's a stepstone to the final journey.
Sami, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
It is my honor, and also I want to thank your entire family for bringing me here and for treating me with grace and love. Thank you.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. Give it a thumbs up on YouTube. I will put links to all of Sami's social media in the bottom as well, so please make sure you give Sami a follow. I'll also put a link to a charity that Sami is going to. Sami doesn't take payments for this. He doesn't get paid. He just asks that I donate to this charity, and so I'll be donating to the charity. And if you want to donate as well, I'll put the link to that in the show notes.
It is the choice, their choice. If you want, I can give them a charity, or they can plant trees in Israel in honor of my name.
I'll put both of those links in the show notes. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a wonderful week. I'll talk to you soon.